In the bustling heart of Singapore's corporate district, where polished glass towers mirrored ambition and success, one story would cut through the noise and redefine the meaning of power. This is the story of a man known as the ICE CEO, Adrian Lau, and the quiet, resilient Filipina caregiver who unknowingly thawed his frozen world. Her name was Maria Dalisay, and while she never sought fame or recognition, her kindness would ripple into circles far beyond her humble intentions. This documentary uncovers how two completely different lives collided, shifting the course of a ruthless empire forever. Adrian Lau was the kind of CEO whose presence alone sent employees scrambling to look busy. He built Lau Technologies into one of Singapore's most aggressive tech conglomerates, famous not just for innovation but for the man behind its decisions, cold, brilliant, and terrifyingly efficient. His board members whispered that he hadn't smiled in years. His assistants rotated every 3 months because none could survive the pressure. To the outside world, Adrian represented success. But inside, he was a fortress of silence, living alone in a penthouse where work screens glowed brighter than any human connection. His emotional distance wasn't born from arrogance alone, it was shaped by loss. Years earlier, Adrian's mother, who had raised him alone after his father abandoned them, died after a long battle with illness. He blamed himself for not being present, too consumed with his rising empire to notice her decline. Since then, he buried himself in work, convinced vulnerability was weakness. When his elderly grandmother, Ma, suffered a sudden stroke, the board urged him to hire full-time care. Reluctantly, Adrian agreed, choosing the first agency that promised someone discreet. The agency assigned Maria Dalisay, a 33-year-old caregiver from Cebu. Maria had spent years caring for elderly clients across Asia, sending money home to support her younger siblings. She carried warmth in her voice and grace in her movements, qualities shaped by hardship, not comfort. Maria arrived at the penthouse expecting just another demanding client, unaware she was stepping into the home of Singapore's most feared tycoon. The moment the elevator doors opened and she saw the sleek, silent space, she felt a mix of awe and intimidation. But beneath it all, she stayed steady. She had a job to do. Maria's first encounter with Adrian was short and icy. He glanced at her from behind a laptop, barely lifting his eyes. "You're here for Ma, not for conversation," he said without emotion. Maria, used to difficult households, simply nodded and responded with a polite "yes, sir." But she could already sense the loneliness thick in the air. Ma, in contrast, welcomed Maria with a gentle smile despite her limited mobility. Her frail hand squeezed Maria's, as if grateful the moment they met. That single gesture told Maria everything she needed to know. This home needed more than medical care. Ma's condition required constant monitoring. She struggled with speech, but her eyes carried a lifetime of stories. Maria patiently interpreted every gesture, every attempt at words, and with time, Ma's trust deepened. But the tension in the household wasn't from illness, it was from Adrian's emotional absence. He checked on Ma only briefly at night, often distracted by business calls. Maria could see the way Ma's eyes softened when he entered, and the way they dimmed when he rushed out moments later. Love was there, but it had nowhere to land. Maria began adding small touches to lift Ma's spirits: Filipino lullabies during therapy sessions, gentle massages, short videos from her family back home. She cooked simple meals, inspired by both Filipino and Singaporean flavors, learning what Ma loved most. The old woman started eating better, smiling more, and responding faster during exercises. In her decades of caregiving, Maria believed healing wasn't just physical, it was emotional. And she brought that belief into everything she did. Her presence slowly transformed the penthouse atmosphere, though neither she nor Adrian realized just how much it mattered. Adrian first noticed the change one late evening when he walked into Ma's room and heard her laughing, an impossibility since her stroke. He froze at the doorway, watching Maria holding up a phone, showing Ma a funny recorded message from Maria's nephew. Ma's shoulders shook with silent laughter. Something inside Adrian cracked, but he quickly masked it. "Keep it quiet," he said sternly. Maria nodded, hiding her smile. She knew she had witnessed an important moment. The ICE CEO wasn't as unreachable as the world claimed. He was just a man afraid to feel. Over the next weeks, Adrian observed little details he couldn't ignore. Alma's appetite improved. Her mobility exercises became more successful. She seemed more alert, more present. Maria documented everything meticulously and updated him without expecting praise. One night he asked, "How did she manage to eat so much today?" Maria simply said, "I made her favorite, congee with ginger. Your mother used to cook it for her." Adrian looked startled. "How did you know that?" Maria answered softly. Alma remembered. It was the first time he truly realized that Maria wasn't just a caregiver, she was a bridge to memories he had forgotten. Maria's dedication extended beyond her job description. She cleaned the penthouse not out of obligation, but because she believed a calm environment helped healing. She placed small plants by Alma's window, sourced from a nearby market using her own day-off allowance. The fresh greens brightened the cold, metallic penthouse, bringing warmth into corners untouched for years. Adrian, without admitting it, noticed every new detail. The home he once treated like a workplace now felt lived in. And though he tried to maintain his distance, something about Maria's quiet strength unsettled the walls he built. The turning point came one stormy night. Adrian returned home, soaked after a tense meeting with investors. His head pounded, his phone wouldn't stop buzzing, and a rare migraine blurred his vision. As he stumbled into the living room, he overheard soft humming, Maria singing a Filipino lullaby as she helped Alma sleep. The melody, tender and soothing, wrapped around his exhausted nerves. He sank onto the nearest couch, pressing his palms over his eyes. For the first time in years, he let himself breathe. Maria saw him, hesitated, then gently asked, "Sir, are you all right?" Adrian expected himself to bark at her, but instead he muttered, "I'll be fine." Maria didn't push. She simply brought him a warm towel and a cup of ginger tea, something she made daily for Alma's throat. "It helps," she said, placing it on the table. He stared at the cup, unused to being cared for by anyone. When he finally took a sip, the warmth spread through him, loosening a knot he'd carried for years. He didn't thank her, not verbally, but Maria saw the shift in his eyes. Sometimes gratitude didn't need words. Days blurred into a quiet routine. Adrian found himself lingering in the mornings, observing how gently Maria encouraged Alma during her walks. Maria, meanwhile, remained professional, always keeping boundaries. But she treated every person in the house, even the CEO, as someone deserving of kindness. Adrian began asking short questions about Alma's progress, and those small conversations slowly softened into real dialogues. Maria shared bits of her life, her siblings, her dream of opening a small bakery someday, her longing for home. Adrian listened, really listened, something he hadn't done for years. One afternoon, Maria discovered a box of old photo albums hidden in a cabinet. She showed them to Alma, who instantly brightened. Together, they went through the pages, photos of Adrian's childhood, his mother, family gatherings he barely remembered. When Adrian came home early that day, he found Maria and Alma giggling at a picture of him covered in cake during his 5th birthday. Maria quickly stood up, embarrassed. But Adrian surprised them both by sitting beside Alma, taking the album into his hands with a smile so faint, it almost looked like a shadow returning to life. Memories flooded him like a tide he wasn't ready for. Maria watched quietly as his expression shifted from nostalgia to grief. "I wish I had been there more," he whispered, staring at his mother's smiling face. Alma reached for his hand, squeezing it with the strength she had left. Maria didn't interrupt. She understood that some moments were not meant for words, only presence. Adrian wiped his eyes, quickly embarrassed. "Thank you for finding these," he murmured. It was the first direct thank you he'd given her since she arrived. As weeks passed, Maria's influence began to ripple beyond the home. Adrian's employees noticed subtle changes. He became less explosive in meetings, more patient, more human. Rumors started circulating. Is the ICE CEO softening? No one knew why. Adrian himself didn't realize how much his grandmother's progress and Maria's quiet presence had grounded him. He started coming home earlier, sometimes bringing dessert for Ama, something unthinkable months earlier. Maria always made sure Ama ate first before taking her own share. That small habit reminded Adrian of the way his mother used to divide food at the dinner table. One evening, Maria suggested something bold, taking Ama outside for fresh air at the nearby rooftop garden. Adrian hesitated, worried about safety, but Ama's pleading eyes convinced him. With the elevator opening to a breathtaking view of Singapore's skyline, Maria guided Ama's wheelchair close to the railing. The old woman inhaled the evening breeze, deeply, eyes shimmering. She missed this, Maria said softly. Adrian watched his grandmother's joy, realizing he had denied her simple pleasures out of fear. At that moment, he saw that caregiving wasn't just medical, it was giving life back. The rooftop visits became routine. Adrian occasionally joined, though he stood awkwardly at first, unsure what to do with his hands or feelings. Maria helped him ease into the silence, talking casually about sunsets in Cebu and the smell of rain during monsoon season. Adrian found comfort in her stories. She painted life vividly, warm, chaotic, and full of connection, so unlike the sterile, structured world he had built. Under the soft glow of city lights, the three of them formed an unexpected kind of family, even if no one said the word aloud. But change often invites conflict. One morning, a senior executive leaked a report to the media accusing Adrian of weakening leadership and misplacing priorities by leaving work earlier than usual. Headlines erupted. Has Lau Technologies lost its edge? The board panicked. Adrian's phone buzzed nonstop. During the chaos, he snapped at Maria for interrupting a call, even though she only needed him to sign a medical permission form for Ama. Hurt flashed across her eyes, but she remained calm. I understand, sir, she said quietly, stepping back. Hours later, guilt gnawed at him. Adrian found Maria in the kitchen preparing porridge, her movements slow and deliberate. About earlier, he began. She didn't look up. Sir, it's all right. Stress can make anyone harsh. Her gentleness disarmed him more than anger would have. It's not all right, he said firmly. You didn't deserve that. Maria finally met his eyes, and for a moment, the CEO and the caregiver stood in silence, not as employer and employee, but as two wounded people learning how to coexist. It was the closest Adrian had come to apologizing face-to-face in years. The scandal intensified. Reporters waited outside Lau Technologies. Investors demanded explanations. Adrian's trusted advisor recommended he distance himself from personal matters, including his grandmother's care. People think you're distracted, the advisor warned. Your image is suffering. But for the first time, Adrian pushed back. I'm not abandoning Ama, he said, surprising even himself. That same night, when he returned home drained, he found Maria and Ama watching a Filipino teleserie. Ama patted the seat beside her, urging him to join. Without thinking, he sat. For 30 minutes, he forgot the world outside. As he watched Maria laugh softly at the dramatic plot twists, something changed inside him, an ache he didn't know he'd been carrying. For years, he believed success meant isolation. But Maria lived in a different truth, community healed. Adrian found himself talking more openly, asking Maria about Filipino culture. She explained fiestas, jeepneys, pansa traditions, and why Filipinos always seemed to smile even when life was tough. Smiling makes heavy things feel lighter, she said. Adrian thought about how he had spent years doing the opposite, carrying weight alone until it hardened him. One weekend, Maria received a call that left her trembling. Her younger brother in Cebu had been hospitalized after an accident. She hid her panic, continuing her work as usual. But Ama sensed something wrong and tugged at Adrian's sleeve when he entered. Maria tried to downplay it, but Adrian insisted she take time off and fly home immediately. Your family needs you, he said. Maria shook her head. Ama needs me too. The old woman tapped her wrist, motioning that she understood and wanted her to go. Tears filled Maria's eyes at their concern. Adrian personally arranged her flight and even handed her an envelope for emergency expenses. Maria refused at first, but he said, "It's not charity. It's help from someone who understands family." She accepted, overwhelmed. When she left for the airport, the penthouse felt strangely empty, like someone had removed the warmth from its walls. Amma refused meals, and her progress slowed. Adrian realized how much Maria's presence had shaped their days. He checked on Amma more frequently, doing his best to fill the silence, but he lacked Maria's gentle touch. The house had grown used to her heartbeat. During her weeks in Cebu, Maria faced emotional and financial strain. Her brother needed surgery, and bills piled up. She sent updates to Adrian occasionally, mostly about Amma's exercises she wanted him to continue. Their messages remained professional, but underneath, a bond had formed, unspoken yet undeniable. One night, Maria apologized for being gone so long. Adrian responded with something that surprised even him. "Take the time you need. You matter here." Maria read the message twice, unsure if she misunderstood. For the first time, she felt seen, not just as a worker, but as a person. One weekend, Maria received a call that left her trembling. Her younger brother in Cebu had been hospitalized after an accident. She hid her panic, continuing her work as usual. But Amma sensed something wrong and tugged at Adrian's sleeve when he entered. Maria tried to downplay it, but Adrian insisted she take time off and fly home immediately. "Your family needs you," he said. Maria shook her head. "Amma needs me too." The old woman tapped her wrist, motioning that she understood and wanted her to go. Tears filled Maria's eyes at their concern. But internal change wasn't enough to quiet the business world. Lau Technologies faced a hostile takeover attempt. The board accused Adrian of emotional instability and called an emergency meeting to remove him as CEO. The night before the vote, he sat alone on the balcony, staring at the skyline that once symbolized everything he had built. Maria approached softly. "You're not alone," she said. It was the first time anyone had told him that since his mother died. For a moment, he let his guard down, confessing fears he kept buried. Maria listened, steady, patient, unwavering. The next morning, Maria waited anxiously as Adrian attended the board meeting. Hours passed. When he finally returned, he looked exhausted but determined. "They voted against me at first," he said. Maria's heart dropped. "At first," she echoed. A faint smile appeared on his lips. Amma showed up. Maria gasped. Assisted by a company driver, Amma had insisted on attending the meeting, where she slowly stood, defying her limitations, and spoke just 3 words. "My grandson, kind heart." Those words silenced the room. The board withdrew the motion. Adrian remained CEO. Adrian shared the story with Maria, overwhelmed by emotion. "She fought for me," he whispered. "Because she sees what I see," Maria replied. "A good man trying to find his way back." For the first time, Adrian didn't argue. He simply let the truth settle. That night, the 3 of them shared a celebratory meal, something simple, chicken porridge, but it tasted like victory. Adrian watched Maria laugh with Amma, feeling something bloom inside him, fragile yet powerful. He wondered when admiration had grown into something deeper. However, feelings complicate boundaries. One evening, after a long day, Adrian found Maria on the balcony, gazing at the moon. He joined her, thanking her for everything she had done. Their conversation grew soft, intimate. When Maria turned to him, he felt an impulse he didn't expect, the desire to hold her. But she stepped back. "Sir, you're my employer," she said gently. The word stung, but he understood. Maria valued dignity above comfort. "I'm sorry," he said. "You've just become important to me." She looked down. "And you to me. But some lines, they protect us both." Her honesty grounded him. Adrian didn't push further. Instead, he focused on becoming someone worthy of the trust she already gave. He implemented better work-life boundaries, expanded healthcare benefits for employees, and used his influence to improve caregiving standards across Singapore. News outlets took notice. ICE CEO turns humanitarian. What happened? His company's reputation soared. Maria watched these changes with quiet pride. She never tried to change him. She simply reminded him of who he once was before the world hardened him. But fate tested them again. Amma's health took a sudden downturn after a severe infection. Maria stayed by her side day and night, barely sleeping, monitoring every breath, every shift in her pulse. Adrian remained close too, but the fear in his eyes betrayed years of unresolved trauma. He had already lost his mother. Losing Amma felt like losing the last thread tying him to the past. One evening, as Maria checked Amma's oxygen, Adrian whispered, "I don't know if I can go through this again." Maria placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're not going through it alone." Despite all efforts, Amma passed away peacefully 2 days later, holding both their hands. Her final gesture was a gentle tap on their intertwined fingers, as if giving her blessing. Adrian broke down, not caring who saw. Maria held him, allowing him to grieve fully, something he had never allowed himself to do. The funeral was intimate. Adrian insisted Maria stand beside him, not behind. People whispered, but he ignored them. Maria offered prayers in her native Visayan, her voice trembling. For Adrian, her presence became the anchor he desperately needed. After the funeral, the penthouse felt heavier than ever. Adrian found himself struggling to move on. He wandered through rooms filled with memories, haunted by silence. Maria tried to stay professional, but she knew the ache of loss too well. One evening, she found him sitting on the floor of Amma's room, holding her scarf. Maria sat beside him without a word. Minutes passed before Adrian whispered, "I don't know who I am without her." Maria gently replied, "You're someone she was proud of becoming." Her words reached a part of him he thought was gone forever. Over the next weeks, grief slowly gave way to reflection. Adrian realized he had a choice: return to the cold shell he once lived in, or build a future shaped by connection and compassion. He chose the latter. He invited Maria to help him establish a foundation in Amma's name, dedicated to supporting elderly care for migrant families. Maria hesitated, overwhelmed, but agreed. They worked side by side, reviewing programs, interviewing caregivers, visiting elderly homes. Their shared purpose strengthened the bond they had both tried to ignore. But bonds are fragile when built in shadows. One afternoon, an online tabloid published a speculative article. CEO Adrian Lau seen growing close to Filipino Caregiver, romance rumors or scandal. Photos of them at community events quickly spread. Maria panicked. "I can't be the reason people disrespect you," she said tearfully. Adrian clenched his jaw. "You're not a scandal. You're the reason I changed." But Maria feared for both their reputations. She considered resigning, her heart breaking at the thought. "Maybe I should go," she whispered. Adrian felt his world tilt again. Instead of reacting with anger or desperation, Adrian did something unexpected. He asked, "Do you want to leave?" Maria shook her head immediately. "No, then stay," he said firmly. "We'll face this together." His certainty steadied her trembling heart. For the first time, they confronted the world not as employer and employee, but as two people fighting for something they both valued. Adrian released a public statement emphasizing dignity, respect, and privacy. Surprisingly, the public responded with support. People admired Maria's humility and Adrian's transparency. As the media frenzy settled, Maria's confidence returned. Adrian continued the foundation work with renewed passion. They visited hospitals, spoke at conferences, and built partnerships with Filipino and Singaporean organizations. Through it all, their relationship transformed, not rushed, not forced, but shaped by shared trials. One day, after a successful project launch, Adrian looked at Maria and said, "I never thanked you for saving me." Maria smiled softly. "You saved yourself. I just held the light so you could see the way." Still, Maria remained cautious. She valued her role, her independence, and her dignity. Adrian respected that deeply. Their bond grew through moments of simplicity, sharing tea after long days, laughing about cultural differences or sitting in silence watching the sunset. Adrian learned to cook Filipino dishes, badly at first, because he wanted to understand the flavors that shaped her childhood. Maria teased him, calling him Sir Adobo, but she cherished the effort. Little by little, the wall between them became a window. Then came the evening that changed everything. Maria received news that her brother had fully recovered and that the family home, damaged by a storm, was being rebuilt with the money she diligently saved. She thanked Adrian for helping her stabilize her finances during her brother's recovery. Adrian shook his head. "You earned every bit of that. I just made sure the world didn't stop you." Overwhelmed with gratitude, Maria hugged him, a rare, spontaneous gesture. Adrian froze, then slowly wrapped his arms around her, not as a CEO, but as a man finally embracing life. The hug stirred feelings that both had kept locked away. Maria pulled back, flustered. "I'm sorry, sir." But Adrian held her hand gently. "Maria, I think we've crossed the point where you need to call me sir." She swallowed, unsure. "Then what should I call you?" Adrian smiled softly. "Just Adrian, if you're comfortable." She hesitated only a moment before whispering, "Adrian." The way she said his name felt like the start of something new, fragile, hopeful, and honest. They didn't rush into anything romantic. Instead, Adrian offered her a new position within his foundation, higher pay, flexible hours, and the freedom to design programs for caregivers. Maria accepted with tears in her eyes. "I never imagined someone like me would be given this chance," she said. Adrian responded gently, "Someone like you? Maria, you changed lives long before you stepped into mine." She began working as a program director, building initiatives that uplifted migrant communities. Her passion became the beating heart of the foundation. With new roles came new dynamics. Adrian and Maria spent less time in the penthouse and more time in the community. Their conversations deepened, not just about work, but about life, dreams, regrets. One night, after returning from a speaking engagement, Adrian walked Maria to her apartment for the first time. It was small but filled with warmth, family pictures, Filipino fabrics, little reminders of home. "This feels more alive than my entire penthouse," he said. Maria smiled. "Because it's filled with love, not luxury." Adrian realized he had spent years living in a beautiful cage. Their relationship evolved naturally over the following months. Adrian confessed that he often feared losing people he grew close to, but Maria helped him unpack that fear little by little. She learned that Adrian wasn't ruthless by nature, he was wounded. And Adrian discovered that Maria wasn't just compassionate, she was incredibly strong. They balanced each other in ways neither expected. Yet even as their bond deepened, they moved slowly, honoring each other's boundaries and professional roles. Their connection wasn't born of impulse, but of healing. Finally, during the anniversary celebration of the foundation, Adrian delivered a speech that would change everything. In front of hundreds, he spoke about the woman who inspired its creation. "She taught me that power means nothing without compassion," he said. Maria, standing backstage, felt tears blur her vision. "She reminded me of the man my mother hoped I'd become." Then Adrian looked toward her direction, not as a CEO scanning the crowd, but as a man acknowledging the one who saved him. The audience erupted in applause, unaware of the deeper truth behind his words. After the event, Adrian asked Maria to take a walk with him. They strolled along the Marina Bay waterfront, the city lights dancing on the water. "Maria," he began, voice unsteady, "I want to say something without titles, without positions, just as me." She nodded, heart racing. "You came into my life as Ama's caregiver," he said softly. "But you became the person who brought my humanity back. And I care for you. Deeply." Maria's breath caught. She had held back her feelings for so long that hearing them echoed felt surreal. "I care for you too, Adrian," she whispered. But she added, "I'm just scared. We come from different worlds. People will talk." Adrian gently took her hands. "Then let them talk. The world didn't save me, you did. What we have isn't scandal. It's a story of healing. Tears rolled down Maria's cheeks. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that love could exist without imbalance, that she could stand beside someone powerful without losing herself. They didn't define their relationship immediately. Instead, they allowed it to bloom naturally, sharing dinners after work, attending community events together, enjoying small pockets of normalcy. Adrian found happiness in things he once considered trivial: street food, afternoon walks, learning Tagalog phrases. Maria found stability in someone who respected her boundaries and valued her voice. Their love wasn't a fairy tale. It was built from real struggles, mutual respect, and the courage to grow. In time, Adrian invited Maria to visit his mother's grave, a deeply personal step. As they stood quietly, he whispered, "I think she would have liked you." Maria squeezed his hand. "I would have loved to meet her." Adrian felt peace for the first time in years. Standing beside Maria, he realized healing wasn't a destination but a continuous journey, one he no longer had to walk alone. And so, the ruthless Singaporean CEO who once ruled with ice became a man ruled by purpose, compassion, and quiet love, all because of a Filipina caregiver who walked into his life with gentle hands and an unshakable heart. Their story reminds us that sometimes the people society overlooks carry the greatest power to transform. Maria didn't melt his heart through grand gestures. She did it through patience, kindness, and unwavering humanity. In a world that often celebrates power, their journey stands as proof. The strongest change begins with love. Thanks for watching.